Get ready to embrace debate. First Take starts now.
What you can hear, ladies and gentlemen, is somebody's blood pressure going up.
Fly ball to deep right, blanks to the track. It is gone. Viva Puig.
Clowney just says, I'll take care of business right here.
This has just left me physically sick.
And I would just love it is if he starts running out onto the field, all of a sudden the guy from MLB goes, whoa, whoa.
Jordan driving. He'll go for it. Yeah, he got it. He got it. He got it.
I would rather my quarterback completed 1 in 100 passes if we win the game.
You never see a team play harder than we will the rest of this season.
What a hit. In the air to left field. Going back on it. It is gone.
He's just an arse.
He likes blocking people, unlike the Green Bay Packers offensive line.
Can't teach that, can you? And you can't defend that.
How stupid is Johnny Manziel?
This is ridiculously stupid.
I'm LeBron James from Akron, Ohio. I'm blessed.
You're listening to First Take UK with Stephen Edwards, but first, Ollie Connolly.
Welcome back everyone to First Take UK. Hope all is going well wherever you are. Welcome to, what is this, the third show of the week? Depends where you think the week starts. Sunday, Monday and now our Tuesday night show of First Take UK. For all the new listeners, thank you for the download and welcome to our show. I am Oliver Connolly, as the voice just said there. Joining me as always, my amazing co-host, Mr. Stephen Edwards. How are we, sir?
Really well. It's another busy day in the American sports world, and it's a infamous day, sadly, in North America and all over the world today, which we're going to touch on shortly.
Yeah, it's a really poignant day. We're going to head off with this straight away, and I hope that you all almost indulge us for a minute, but I think it's good for us to talk about as well, Stephen. We are recording this, sadly, on September the 11th, the anniversary of the attacks that hit America. What was it, 2001? It seems not so long ago. Yeah, it's actually 12 years ago, which is frightening. There's a personable reason to this for me and Stephen to talk about it, which is why we sort of want to cover it. And it does also revolve around sports, because it played such a major part in the recovery after the tragic events of September the 11th. And we just want to give a few minutes to it, Stephen, because, like I said, there is a personal reason to it. I hope you don't mind if I take the lead on this, Stephen, and just share with some listeners for the moment. For the new listeners who don't know, Stephen is married to a Texas woman. I don't think it's the classic yokel Texas sort of image. It's not. So he has a personal connection there in terms of having family from America and knowing what the culture's like of that proud nation and everything. I have a connection probably closer to that side of things in terms of the New York area. I lived in Boston for probably a quarter of the year. My dad used to live in Boston. I used to fly between the two. I came back from Boston just before September for the start of a new school term. On that year, I was about 9 years old. So we have a personal connection, Stephen.
No, without doubt. And so this is always a very poignant day on the calendar every year. And as you already say, it's 12 years ago, but it still seems so fresh in the memory. And like most people, it's one of those classic things people turn around and say, what were you doing the day of September 11th and where you found out about the attacks on the United States. And I remember what I was doing, and I'm sure yourself as well, Ollie, will have some recollections around that day.
Yeah, I was only 9 years old, which is weird to think of because I do remember it so vividly. And I probably remember probably more than most 9-year-olds in this country, simply due to the personal connection of my dad living out in Boston. At that time, like I told you before, Stephen, I didn't really have a great geographical, compass, especially to do with the vast nation that is America. So I knew New York was close, and I sort of always told it was just down the road and we could go for a day or something, and come back to Boston where we lived in Maine. So at that time I had really no idea what was going on, because it wasn't just New York as well, is a key point. It was in Pennsylvania, there was threats to Washington, it was everywhere, and it's just scary time, particularly with family and friends out there.
Yeah, incredibly scary times. I mean, my knowledge of Boston goes from a point of view that I've only been there for a day, and it is only a day trip away. I mean, I think when I drove up there, it was something like 2.5 hours away from the heart of New York City. So, yeah, it's one of those places you can go, go for a day. For the equivalent of me, it'd be from where I live to somewhere like Birmingham or somewhere like that. So it's really not that far away. But yeah, it was other parts of the country, and I remember trying to get hold of one of my friends who lived in New York at that time to try and make sure that she was okay, and you couldn't get through to anywhere because the telecommunications were down and various things were cancelled on that day, and it was just absolutely tragic events of that particular day.
It really was tragic and just frightening, whole scale. I don't even think that was just to America as well. I think everyone felt something different that day, and it's a cliche to say the world changed on that day, but I really, really believe every aspect of our lives changed that day. I honestly believe that. Yeah,
I mean, how can you not be affected by a day like that? And it's going to change various things all over the world. The various, if you want to look at it from a point of view, from your security point of view, the security measures that have come in since 9/11 happened, from when you fly and just your general day-to-day security, and some of the things that are now monitored on a day-to-day basis without trying to be too controversial. Things will change because of that day and different measures that had to be put in place. I mean, for myself, and anyone else who was in the UK at that time, the incidents occurred around about 1:30 our particular time. So I was actually on holiday at the time, not out of the country, anything like that. I was taking some time away from work because I was 25 at the time. So yeah, I just got some holiday, and it was one of those things that, you turn on the TV, and the first channel you think you turn on, you think you're watching some kind of movie. You're not even considering what else is going on, and then you start flicking through the channels, and it's the one time that I can truly remember that no matter what channel you turned on, it was just completely 100% coverage towards the events that were taking place in America at that particular time. So I remember sitting there watching it on TV and just being absolutely horrified.
For new listeners, we are going to get into some sport debate show. It'd be remiss of us, Stephen. We feel obliged to talk about it today because I've listened to lots of shows that haven't covered it, I believe, to a detail where I think it deserves to be covered every single year by every media outlet as possible. I think that they should cover it. We are going to get on to talking about following up on Oklahoma State. We talked about the charges yesterday. More charges coming out today leveled at Oklahoma State, more allegations. Derek Jeter's out for the year. We're going to get some thoughts on what's going to happen to the captain. Looking at the Manning Bowl as well, Kobe Bryant. It's a really old age theme, this show, towards the back end of this show. But I do want to talk to you, Stephen, about the sports around that time. This is a sports show, so we're going to delve into the sports side of things. And again, it's not going to be incredibly long what we're going to talk about here. We're just going to touch on it briefly, Stephen. But I know you've looked into this quite a lot about how the sporting world reacted. It was football season and baseball season. So the reaction from the basketball world, for example, did everything they could in and around. I know that for a fact. But obviously, on field and stuff, they couldn't make the sort of statements that maybe the country needed that time. But football and baseball took a real lead.
No, I should say, and it was certainly led by New York at that time. I mean, the baseball commissioner, Bud Selig, initially called off games for one day. That was then later extended for 3 days. Then all games through September 16th were cancelled. And it actually made the 2001 season that a little bit longer. For me, my special memory of that particular time from a baseball point of view was the first game back in New York against the Atlanta Braves on the 21st of September. And the two teams came together, various people from firemen and everything else came together on that one night. And I don't want to say that particular one game lifted a nation, because I think that's incredibly hard to say. But I mean, if anyone that was there that night and anyone that's seen the video footage when New York's favourite son at that time, Mike Piazza, hit the home run that gave the Mets the lead and ultimately won that game, the whole crowd just absolutely erupted, and I've heard people say that they've never heard anything like it on that night, and it just seems like it put a few smiles back on people's faces just in the city of New York, and then led to all over the rest of baseball at that particular time. The NFL made a decision that they would cancel the games of the 16th of September, but also the Monday night game as well. They pushed the playoffs back a further week, and it led to the Super Bowl being played in February for the very first time. And obviously now we know that that's become the norm. The Super Bowl does get played on the first Sunday night in February, but at that time it wasn't the case. So it seems strange to say the way we look at that now, but the NFL took the lead as well, that they decided that's what they would happen, to do their part in terms of letting the nation mourn and heal. And then the same for the college football. The college football did exactly the same. They postponed their games as well. So everyone at that time just gave everyone the chance to take a step back, and sport got kind of put into the background for everything else that was going on. But when sport came back, it just seemed as though that it gave people, a bit of a lift, something to look forward to, put smiles on people's faces. And I say no more so than that particular home run by Mike Piazza. And again, baseball became America's pastime. I mean, that was also the season later on that Barry Bonds ended up hitting those home runs that broke the home run record. It's just various different things happened later on in that season. We was greeted with a wonderful World Series between the Diamondbacks and the Yankees in 2001 that the Diamondbacks won. So everything from a sporting point of view got back to as normal as it could possibly be. But it did play a part, I think, in trying to start to make people feel better about things. But you could never, ever forget the events that happened on September 11th.
I completely agree. I think my abiding memory, sporting-wise, from that time period was more on the football side of things. I came from more of a football family. So the Patriots actually were in New York. I'm not sure if you remember. They went to the Giants the week after the games were postponed. They were due to go that weekend. It was postponed, and they played the game. Just incredible. I remember watching that game. It was phenomenal. They had all the firefighters there. They had the huge American flag. Just incredible. And I think, like you said, I don't know if it necessarily brought smiles to the face. I think what it did was just allow them to take 3 hours off. Just take 3 hours off, for example, even longer at a ball game, and just concentrate on that thing, and don't let your mind go anywhere else. Vent your frustration at an umpire or something. Just take your mind off what was really going on. I think that's the real role sport played. I think there was some great examples of sport in the community as well. I think that the Giants did a hell of a lot. I know they did a hell of a lot. Tom Coughlin was just sensational around that time period. I know that from some friends living in New York. Tom Coughlin was just a one-man machine, doing all he could, doing everything that was physically possible out of schedule for the Giants to do to help a community that was really hurting in around that time. And like I said, it's just basically just an escape route. Like, sport can be so often anyway for people, personal troubles, but as a whole nation, you could just sit down on a Sunday afternoon, take a few hours off, and just concentrate on something other than what had happened and what was going on in front of them.
Yeah, I mean, a thing I'd like to say in terms of for my closing comments, I happened to find this quote today from Bobby Valentine, who was the coach of the New York Mets at the time, and it's a bit of a long monologue, so you have to indulge me a bit, Mr. Connolly, on this one.
Okay.
Bobby Valentine said it was really emotional, and it was filled with symbolic gestures. It started in Pittsburgh when Robin Ventura and the public relations chief, Jay Horowitz, decided to wear an NYPD and NYFD hat in practice, and then the guys wanted to do it in the game. And then the commissioner said we weren't allowed because we had a contract of New Era, and then we said BS to the commissioner and anybody else who's going to try to keep us from wearing the hats. He follows that up with saying that we put on a good face, we tried to smile, we tried to laugh, we tried to be normal, but nothing could have set the tone more properly the Mike's line drive over the left field fence, I think really allowed people to return to normality. And anyone that hasn't seen that home run, I would urge you to watch it on YouTube, and I would urge you to watch it with your speakers turned up, because even you won't get any actual sense of what it was like that night, but it's incredibly emotional to watch it. I still get goosebumps when I see it, and I took the time again to watch it today, and that whole game was just perfect. You had the tear-jerking pre-game tribute, and then, as I say, Mike Piazza's iconic home run, and everyone knows how Mike Piazza's regarded in New York. I mean, so much so that when he came back with the San Diego Padres for the last time as a member of their team, Mike Piazza had to take a moment to compose himself because of how New York gave him such a reception, and he couldn't stop tipping his hat.
Wonderful words, Stephen. We'll close it there. We'll just send all our thoughts in with everyone still affected by the events of September the 11th today. And now we have to move on, Stephen, unfortunately, to just obviously such smaller things as sport and sport debate, but we do have lots to get into, and we still have a packed show to get into, and we're going to keep our spirits up talking about this stuff, and we're still going to have some fun on today's show talking about some of these topics, because let me tell people now, me and Stephen had a bit of a pre-show before, and there's one topic within a topic that is absolutely stunning and hilarious, and it relates to Oklahoma State. We'll come on to that in a minute, Stephen, because we have a bit of housekeeping to do. Trying to drive up some numbers for the show, so it keeps us sane. We get some new fan interaction. Do you remember the name of that woman, by the way, Stephen? I've just forgotten that woman's name, and I feel really bad.
Gia Detel?
Gia Detel is a big fan of First Take UK. So Gia Detel, you're the follower listener shout out for today's show, Stephen. We won't do personal shout outs. We just did that then in a long soliloquy. We know exactly where our thoughts are with on personal shout outs today. We can't give any laughable, jokey ones. It just doesn't seem right on today. But that's the listener shout out for today. Gia Detel, a big fan of the show. In terms of housekeeping, Stephen, the polls that went up yesterday, frantic voting. I'm telling you now, I looked through the votes all day. They've been switching every which way, particularly with regards to who's going to have the worst season in college football, USC or Texas. Looking at the votes now, 71% says USC, 28% says Texas. So they're siding with me on that one, Stephen. And then which coach is going to get fired first? Lane Kiffin has 60%, Matt Brown has 20%, and then your prediction of both also has 20%. 0% says neither. So we reckon one of them's gonna be out the door by the end of the season. So just general housekeeping before we get into the debate. If you enjoy this show, let people know. Word of mouth. Retweet on Twitter. Follow us on Twitter at UK First Take. Use the hashtag FTUK if you want as well, if you want to go down that route. Check out the website ukfirsttake.wordpress.com. There's all sorts of polls up there. There's all sorts of different mediums to follow the show. iTunes links to subscribe, non-Apple links so you can stream it live from Hipcast, or you can download it directly to your phone or wherever you listen to the thing on your computer, and a YouTube link with a YouTube channel, Stephen Edwards, where people can listen to the show on YouTube. That is so easy, so easily done. If you just type in US Sports Media on YouTube, the channel will come up and you'll see First Take UK, or type in First Take UK. Either way, the YouTube channel will come up. You can subscribe to that bad boy as well, and you get all the shows straight away, Stephen, as soon as I spend my early hours of the morning uploading them for everyone.
This is it. What a star Ollie is. That's what Ollie does. Before he goes to bed at night, whilst he's sitting there watching some late night Red Sox game, he uploads all the shows. I mean, the easiest way to find all the shows is just to go to the website and go to how to listen to find us, and they're all there. I mean, subscribe to all of them. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube. Do the direct stream download, and also subscribe to us and comment on us on iTunes. Do the lot.
It really helps us. It helps us no end. We've got sponsor deals on Tentalks ready to... We were signing off on some stuff later this evening, Stephen. So we're going to have new sponsors. That's going to be exciting. And then the more people give to us through listenership, the more sponsors we get, the better offers they get. So help yourselves. It's pretty simple. There's going to be a couple of new sponsors. They're going to give deals to us to give to you, the listener. Ipso facto, spread the word, more listeners, more sponsors, more deals. I mean, what more can we say? I mean, it's not going to take any time out of the show. It's just going to be First Take presented by XYZ. We aren't going to take any time out of the show.
No, this is it. That is literally what it is. First Take UK brought to you by whatever it is.
Whatever concoction of companies wish to get involved.
Exactly, and if they all want to get involved, and if we have to reel off a 20-word associated with without taking a breath, then I'll give it a go.
We'll give it our best shot. Again, if you're a company wanting to get involved, we have space for adverts, because, we're an hour and a half show. There's some space at the start and the end. There's some space going around there. Alright then, Stephen, let's get into this properly then. I want to kick off with this Oklahoma State stuff. It is delicious. I mean delicious to get your teeth into this thing. Now again, we're going to have lots of new listeners, Stephen, because we've had a real boost in following, both on iTunes and on Twitter. I think we have to lay our cards on the table straight off the bat. For a day job, I'm a college football guy. That's what I do. I sit and analyse college football tapes, so my main passion is college football. Stephen loves them all. I mean, I love them all as well, don't get me wrong. I'm a Boston sports fan, so the Red Sox, Patriots, Celtics are my boys. A Florida Gators college football fan. Stephen Edwards is a New York/Miami man. He takes his talents to South Beach when it comes to football. That's where you take your talents, Stephen Edwards. And then you're all about New York, but with regards to baseball, your New York Mets, which is a wonderful decision on your part. I bet that's treated you well over the past few years. And then a Chicago Bulls fan. He's a Jordan-era kid. You can't blame the boy. You cannot blame the boy. He also loves D-Rose, which is your Twitter handle. Let's give out Twitter handles then, Stephen. I'm gabbling, but we will get into the debate. At Ollie UKEZ is I'm excited because there's new listeners, Stephen. So at Ollie UKEZ is my Twitter handle. Stephen Edwards is at DRoseUK36. There's his Chicago Bulls passion. And the whole show is, again, at UK First Take. Okay then, Stephen Edwards. Oklahoma State embroiled in this Sports Illustrated, I don't know what you can even call it. These articles of accusations. Soap opera is a great word. Yesterday we had the financial side of it, the money, up to £20,000, an elaborate scheme, a bonus scheme, everyone getting paid per tackle, guys coming, just having hundreds of thousands of pounds in their lockers, in socks and stuff. If you haven't heard our first thoughts on that, I'm quite strong on this with regards to the NCAA and how they handle the coaching staff in these respects. Go and listen back to last night's show. That'll be up on the website as well. Today, Steve, we have the academic reasons. Now, this was the second of a 5-part series, and I told Oklahoma State fans, hold on to your hats, because this is just going to get darker and darker and worse, and we'll hear even more apologies from the institution over the coming days. Today's allegations, these are the main ones I took from it, Stephen. They had tutors and top-grade students complete the coursework of student athletes. Tutors. There was multiple instances of student athletes passing grades with no evidence of any work at all. Leslie Miles would routinely insinuate football was more important than academics. And then this is the crazy one, Stephen Edwards. This is almost laughable at how... I'm just going to read it. They set up a hostess program, which is a program of young females to sleep with recruits. When contacted, an unnamed source said they didn't believe it was an NCAA recruiting violation. What can you say? What can you say? And I said to you off air before that I don't know how to respond to that last point. It's both ingenious and perverted. It's bizarre that they thought that they could get away with that then to think it's not a recruiting violation, but also slightly ingenious, because I don't know if the NCAA would have a rule against that, and maybe that would help recruit athletes. I mean, joking aside, your whole thoughts on the second allegations that have come out, the academic ones today?
See, the academic one, in some respects, after what I heard yesterday, the academic ones aren't so much of a surprise. I mean, some of the comments that some of the players have come out and said, I mean, we've got, I think 13 former players told Sports Illustrated they'd received academic assistance, and then they named another 16
camaraderie
teammates.
there. That's what happens when you buy a team. That's the sort of camaraderie you get.
Yeah, literally just sell each other out as quickly as possible. Former wide receiver Artel Woods told the magazine he didn't write a single paper whilst he was at OSU, but rather completed work dictated to him by a tutor. Great, brilliant. Brad Gertman, are you kidding me? I didn't go there to go to school. I went there to play football. There you go. There's a little football head for you. And Kevin White, another one of the players, was quoted as saying they just want to make sure you keep passing. From what I gather, the former offensive lineman Jonathan Cruz said you basically got a C just for turning up. You didn't have to pass the test, do your homework assignments. As long as you went to class, they'll give you a C because that's what they care about is Oklahoma State football. Now, astonishing in one respect because of, again, how many people are involved. But the more I hear of this, the more I'm not so shocked. This is now a completely dirty football program during this particular time period. I think before this investigation took place, I think someone turned around and said that before 2001, I think they'd had 11 of 12 losing seasons. And then in this time period they're looking at, every year was a winning season.
I've told you before, I said it last night, the old notion that goes around college football that everyone says to each other, show me a winning program and I'll show you a program that cheats. That's not a winning program that does it like 1 year, because you can have a good recruiting class and coach well. A sustained winning football program is the one that cheats, and it's usually someone outside of your Alabamas. I would never level that accusation at Alabama. But like I said, to go from that many losing seasons to that many winning seasons, and you read all these reports, and it just baffles me. I always bring it back to the coach. How many times do football programs get in trouble, and the coach, nothing happens to the coach? And it happens, and I'm not levelling that at the NCAA again like I did last night with this one. That happens because the coach keeps himself out of it. It's an attitude, if you bring me the player and I'll coach him up. They don't care about anything else. They do only care about football. Whether they say they care about academics or not, some of them maybe want to make these guys better men. And that there'll genuinely be some coaches like that out there that'll be part of their sales pattern in the recruiting process, and they'll probably live by that, and they think football helps that as well as the academics. But the first and foremost for them is the football program. And Les Miles here clearly has got himself involved in every aspect of this. His hands are all over it.
He's absolutely hands-on.
He's left his footprints everywhere. He's took no chances here of just basically figure out what's going on at the start if you're a dirty football coach, then remove yourself from it. SMU did it all the time. When SMU got the death penalty, they couldn't nail Ron Meyer, they couldn't nail the other guys, because the coaches don't get involved. It's what dirty football programs do. They leave it up to the booster, sometimes the AD gets involved, but that's how they do it. You do not run it through the coach's office, which is what clearly has happened here. Again, an assistant employed on his staff was what we told you yesterday, simply to give the money. That was the guy's job. He was called an offensive assistant, and apparently he had little to no knowledge of the playbook, and he would just be seen walking around the locker room handing out wads of cash and socks. I mean, for the head football coach not to know about that, and then to spit out this drivel and make these supposed hand gestures, and I don't know how to explain them through the podcast, which is why I haven't tried to do so now. It's just along the lines of insinuating, like I said, that football is more important than academics. And then you get onto the hostess program. What shocks me about this hostess program, Stephen, is that this was left as a teaser at the end of the article today, because like I said, it's a 5-part series. It's financial, academic, sex, drugs, and the last one escapes me, Stephen. I don't know if you can remember what the 5th part of this whole process is. I think it might just be the whole culture, but it escapes me right now. So for them to just drop that little nugget at the end, that's setting up unknown amounts of what's going to come out in that segment tomorrow. They just dropped that one in there. They had a hostess program set up purely to sleep with recruits who are on visits to try and make them come to OKU.
I didn't even get into that side of things when we were just talking a minute ago. But I mean, my initial thoughts of that side of things, I mean, that is, fair enough argument they've come up with to say it's not an NCAA, and that shows how speechless I am about this. But it's morally wrong.
You know what this shows me as well? This is the first time I've seen, and I've covered this sport for about 10 years, and I'm only 19. That's a lie. I've covered it for about 6-7 years. I did it from about being 13, I started covering and following and writing to my dad about Boston College. It's how far back I've gone with this thing and trying to get to know about college football. This is the first instance I've seen where it's infected the whole school. Like, imagine if you have a degree at this time now from Oklahoma State University, how worthless that degree is now. They basically tampered the piece of paper. There's no point in anyone ever having a degree from this time period at Oklahoma State University, because it obviously means nothing. It's not a new thing that guys cruise through class at college. You know, there was the famous instance again at SMU where guys would turn up to a class, and in the little drawers that they had in their tables, it was just a playbook, and there was nothing else there.
Yeah,
but this is infected,
because that's all they cared about.
But this has infected the whole institution when you're talking about a hostess service, basically an escort service of girls at your institution. I don't want to put allegations out there, but I mean, why else would they be doing this other than maybe receiving some money to have some part in this recruiting process? I mean, why would they get involved in this service? So you're just spreading this wildfire throughout the whole institution of Oklahoma State. It's bizarre that it goes so far beyond football.
This is it. I mean, it's not only a football program that's being tarnished. It's the whole university and just everyone that's associated with it at that particular time. And I mean, even we've got a guy like Des Bryant, of course, is another guy that's been caught up in this.
He's refused to respond.
Oh, I can imagine he's refused to respond.
I mean, I don't put that on Des Bryant. Des Bryant, that's fine. I think he should just be, you know what, he's left there now. I understand that. He wasn't a decision maker at the time. I mean, you picture it if you're a recruit. If you do, again, I'm on the side of paying the athletes to a certain extent, so I veer away from putting the blame on them. I want to get this focus slap bang on Les Miles, and it is not because he's at a rival school to my Florida Gators, and it's not because Stephen Edwards, he's at your football program. Stephen Edwards is an LSU Tigers fan. Les Miles being the head coach of your football program. How long now, 2 parts, before people come and knocking, unless they're not already doing that, or unless SI already did that, go and investigate in that LSU football program? How long before LSU read this thing and say that they can't have that guy around anymore?
Well, one, I think, I can see them going to LSU because of what he's been, because he's now there. So it then becomes, once a dirty coach, always a dirty coach.
Yeah.
You can't believe all of a sudden he did all of this at Oklahoma State, and he's then just cleaned up his act completely since he's gone over to LSU, because that is literally just head in the sand stuff. But I think LSU have got to distance themselves from this as quickly as possible, and for me, I think his days are numbered. LSU have got to just get this guy away from this football team, and then they may very well, if they're sensible, want to start looking at this internally themselves before the SI and anyone else that's interested in Les Miles starts trying to rip apart this program.
Yeah, I'd be distancing myself as quick as possible. Football coaches are always going to want to coach at LSU. That is a premier powerhouse football program. They could pick up any number of phenomenal coaches, at a lower football program right now. They could do that tomorrow. I'd get shot of him pretty much. Obviously, I'd have to sit down and talk to him. You'd have to find out about these allegations, because remember, these are allegations, but it's in so much detail, and with so many people on record, named on record. Even if 10% of it's true, it's not a good look for LSU. You don't want people sniffing around your football program. If you know there's something going on at all, again, something goes on in every football program. Even if it's just a $5 for, a coffee or something, that's still against the rules. So something goes on at every program. You don't want people sniffing around your football program. They need to distance themselves ASA and P from Les Miles, because this is not good at all. And Stephen, something else that last night you said to me about, you could see the death penalty pretty quickly, and I was like, well, that's far too hasty from what we saw just from the money side. When you look at this rest of the stuff, I don't know what other avenue they can go down at the moment if this stuff is true. Because the money you can sort of overlook, and you can see precedents for Ohio State lads. They just got bans that the program wasn't shut down. when you're talking about an escort service for recruits and all these sort of things, you're then getting up to, and I'm not accusing it to being the same sort of thing as a Penn State scandal. That's on a completely different level. But when you bring in the sex into it and the drugs, plus the financial side, and the fact that the head coach appears to be involved, and someone on his staff, you're getting very, very close to death penalty stuff.
This for me is real death penalty now. I can't see any other thing that the NCAA can do, but then we always
they'll shock us.
That.
They'll probably put Oklahoma State in the championship game this year.
Yeah, they're going to say, well, hang on a second. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Yeah, we're perfectly happy, and this is the route we'll go down. So, the death penalty has been handed down on 5 separate occasions. So, I think this maybe warrants number 6.
This is just atrocious. And I signed off last night by saying, hold on to your hats, Oklahoma State fans, those little cowboy hats you must be having at the moment, because the shit has just massively hit the fan, Stephen. And again, it's going to get worse. We've got 3 more days of this, and we have no idea what's coming out. If this stuff isn't explosive enough, and if this is enough to take down a program, they got 3 more days of this. I mean, how do you handle this as an institution right now? And what does the football team that are there now? Because Mike Gundy, the head football coach, was a quarterback coach on that staff. How do they handle things from the football side of things coming up to this week? I don't know who they face this week. I don't know if they have a bye week. But just in general, this football program for this year, I mean, how do they start handling this thing?
It's very, very difficult. I mean, something I want to touch on, just in case anyone who doesn't know what a death penalty is. Let's give you an example of what happened to SMU, because that for me is the one.
That's the first one.
Really
definitely the most brutal one. So
yeah, I mean, let's just read off some of the sanctions they had. I mean, this was back in 1987, so a little bit before Mr. Connolly's time. But I started getting into American football in the mid-'80s, but the college football didn't come till a little bit later on, because it was shown in the early hours of the morning on a Saturday night. So you used to have a video recorder, and I used to set up and record it and watch it later on. So yeah, back in the days before pre-DVD fans, there we go, the old VHS. Anyway, joking aside. So this was 1987, so they had to cancel the 1987 season. Only conditioning drills without pads were permitted until the spring of 88. All home games in 1988 were cancelled. SMU were allowed to play 7 regularly scheduled away games that other institutions would not be financially affected. The university ultimately chose to cancel the away games as well. The team's existing probation that they had at that time was extended until 1990. Existing ban from bowl games and live television was extended to 1989. So you've got like a 4-year period there from when they had no live TV games, no bowl games. SMU lost 55 new scholarship positions over the 4 years. They were only allowed to hire 5 full-time assistant coaches instead of the normal 9. And there was no off-campus recruiting permitted until August of 1988, and no paid visits could be made to campus by potential recruits until the start of the 1988-1989 school year. So, in the truest sense of the word from college football, that is a death penalty.
Yeah, that kills a program, and it didn't. Yeah. It took them till about, what was it, 2009 till they got back to a bowl game. I mean, that was a powerhouse. I mean, it was the best football team money could buy, as they said. I mean, my favourite quote from that whole situation is the taking a pay cut to go to the NFL, which is what a lot of the SMU lads had to do. Plus, a lot of the SMU lads who went to the NFL were still on SMU's books whilst they were in the NFL. Some of them signed 6-year deals, and the most you can play college football is 4 years, and some of them signed 6-year deals with these boosters, so that when they were in the NFL, they were still receiving money from SMU. That was just a sensational. And this isn't at that scale financially, because we're talking millions of dollars there. This is like tens of thousands of dollars per people, but how, I don't know how to quantify this whole situation. That still sticks out for me, that escort service. I think that's something that can really get you the death penalty. That's something that's going to affect Les Miles massively as well. I think if that comes out, and we still haven't had the full disclosure of what SI has on that, because that comes out, I think it's either tomorrow or the day after, the sex aspect of that, and we still haven't had the drug side, which again, I said to you, that's in every college campus, so I still wait to see what's in that report. it's just getting worse and worse, and Les Miles is literally, the clock's ticking on Les Miles' time as the LSU head football coach.
I think so. I mean, if you want to, we're talking about, you mentioned Penn State earlier on. Penn State didn't get the death penalty.
Well, as close as possible without calling it the death penalty.
Well, yeah, they got some of the harshest sanctions that the NCAA had handed down, but they didn't actually get the death penalty. They got a 4-year bowl ban, but they did. The school president at the time, Rodney Erickson, did say that the death penalty was on the table and was considered, but ultimately they chose to hand down the other sanctions instead. So, and the reason why apparently the death penalty wasn't handed down was because of how quickly Penn State reacted to the charges that were being brought. So I think it'll be very interesting to see how Oklahoma State handle some of these revelations that are being put against our school and see how quickly they react. But for me, I think this is certainly one of the most serious things I've seen from a college standpoint. I was a little bit young for the SMU one and only heard about that later on, but this is incredibly serious. And the thing is, we've only had a couple of days of this. This could still get a whole lot.
We got no idea. And of course, I've said to you already, I said it last night and I repeat to the listeners, Oklahoma State's initial response, which I found excellent, to be honest. I thought it was a great response, because usually people come out on the defensive. Again, we had it with Texas A&M in a completely different scenario with Johnny Manziel at the start of the year. They come out and criticise the reporting. Oklahoma State basically fessed up straight away. They said, look, we apologise to everyone for our name being tarnished because we don't know what's gone on and we're going to have a look into it. It's basically what they said. So that's paraphrasing exactly what the president said. It sounds like a near confession, like they knew something was untoward. And also SI already went to them and presented their findings, and so it will have gone through the lawyers of SI, and all this stuff's come out. Seems pretty bang on to me, Stephen Edwards, with the amount of stuff they've got. Again, like you said, 3 more days of this thing, it's just going to get worse and worse. And if I'm Oklahoma State right now, I clear house of anyone who was involved in the institution at that time. That's the quickest way to do it, whether it's making scapegoats of Mike Gundy, who was simply a quarterback coach at the time. If you want to try and fight off the death penalty or even sanctions like Penn State got, or even anything a little bit worse than that would massively affect them, they might get kicked out of that conference for what they've done, then I'd just get rid of anyone who was in and around that football program and possibly within the institution at that time.
Something I just want to come back on that you were saying about the almost admission of guilt. They have come out and said that at no point was this an admission of guilt. They just want to reiterate that wasn't an admission of guilt. And since I've just choked Mr. Connolly by saying that.
Apologies to the president and to the listeners for my choking fit there.
So they whilst they're apologetic to the NCAA and the conference as a whole, they are not under no circumstances at this time admitting guilt. But I completely agree with you. They need to.
Sounds like a confession. It sounds like you can't come out straight off the bat and say, yeah, we did it, we fess up. But it doesn't sound like they're not filling everyone with hope that they have confidence that none of this is true.
No, it's like everything else. You can read into whatever you want about somebody's words and how they construed and everything else. But yeah, moving on to your second point there, I think that they need to distance themselves from anyone who was around about that time. Unfortunately, even if people weren't involved, they're going to have to be gone because they've got to do a clean sweep and show that the NCAA that they've dealt with them from internal matter to give themselves any shot at all of escaping the death penalty. Because if they get the harsh sanctions that Penn State got in terms of the bowl games and things like that, then that's a killer enough. But if you go down the death penalty route and get some of the sanctions along the lines of what SMU got 25 years ago, then that effectively kills a football program, and you're trying to bounce back from that, and it might take 10 to 15 years to do it.
Yeah, okay, let's move on from Oklahoma State. We spent a good length of time in there. I think we had to, because it's so explosive, and it's probably the biggest issue where you can take different sides of things and we can have true debates. And although we've agreed on many key points, everything else this day, Stephen, is more down the line of the old age variety. I said to you before, it feels like we're in 2006 again, because on the slate now we've got Jeter, we've got Peyton Manning, we've got Kobe Bryant and Michael Beasley. I feel like we're back when they were all at the top of the game and Michael Beasley was a high school phenom. Let's touch on Derek Jeter and the captain. He's placed on the DL from now, and he's effectively done for the season, is what the Yankees have said. So is this the last we've seen of the captain, or is he going to try and come back next year for one last hurrah?
I find it very difficult to write off Derek Jeter for next season, because I don't think this is a way that he'd want to go out, and the competitor in him. People were writing him off back in 2010 when he had a down year, and he then responded on that and then produced once again. So I think Derek Jeter's going to probably want to go down the lines of what Mariano Rivera's done and try and have some kind of a farewell tour. Because, I mean, Derek Jeter, even as a Yankees player, a lot of people in the sports world don't like the Yankees for whatever reason. I'm not the biggest fan, and my co-host, being a Boston Red Sox fan, is certainly not going to be a big fan of the Yankees. But Derek Jeter does command respect for what he's done for not only the game of baseball, the city of New York. Absolutely loved by the Yankees fans and baseball fans as a whole. He's one of those players that's from that era when the Yankees first came back into prominence back in the mid-90s, when they started winning World Series again, and he was a big time part of that. He was given the moniker of being an extremely good player in the postseason. So I don't think the Yankees are not going to make the postseason this year, so they're not going to worry about not necessarily having Jeter. But I would fully expect Derek Jeter to be suited up for if opening day and be able to start putting that final season together, because I think he's got possibly one season left in him.
Yeah, I have differing views on this, and it comes down to the fact: do I expect Derek Jeter to be there, and should Derek Jeter be there? It's a very clear distinction to me. Derek Jeter, if he's thinking purely about Derek Jeter, and he has every right to, by the way, if he just wants to do that, because he's done enough for that organisation, he'll come back, he'll try everything he can to come back. Although, on the flip side of that, do you want to come back as a shell of yourself? I mean, we may not see him on the baseball field again. I find that hard to believe. He's going to come back on at some point, because people are going to need to know this is his last game. That's just a fact. He's going to have to come onto the field at some point again. But it doesn't behoove him to come back on as any semblance of the player he was once. It doesn't make any sense for him to have that image. Go out because Mariano Rivera is still playing at a high standard. Joe Girardi wants him to come back. They want him back for another year. The Yankees are in a hellhole with their payroll. They are absolutely gutting their roster. They want to get down to a certain level. I can't remember the exact figure now, so they don't have to pay that 50% luxury tax, so that in 2015 they can absolutely hit the free agency market and spend like the Yankees again. So it works out for the Yankees. They probably don't want him back. As bizarre as that seems, this is Derek Jeter. But if you're trying to gut the roster, they're trying to get rid of Curtis Granderson. They're trying to get rid of A-Rod. Rivera's going. Who else is out there? Robinson Cano, and we're going to talk about Robinson Cano in just a little while. They need all these guys to go to get down to that magical figure. So it suits the Yankees for him to walk away from the game and not want to be a shell of himself. And I think you could make the argument for Jeter that why go for all that effort to come back and be barely the player you once were? Don't try and tarnish that memory. And I don't think Jeter's memory can ever be tarnished. But it still doesn't look good. I still remember Jerry Rice in football going out, not being able to make the squad of the Seattle Seahawks, wearing that Oakland Raiders jersey and just not looking his best. It happens to people, and it can affect their legacy. This is different because he's not moving franchises. I think we'll see him again. I just don't know if it's in the best interest of the Yankees or Jeter.
I completely disagree, because I mean he's had an awful season due to injury, and he's never fully recovered from that injury suffered in last year's playoffs. But let's rewind back to 2012. So his last fit season, and that's not that far away. Far ago. That's a year ago. Derek Jeter hit 316, 15 home runs, 58 RBIs. You cannot tell me that he's all of a sudden become a shell of his former self. He's had an injury like anyone else has had.
So he's injured. So
yeah,
where's the proof that he's going to be back from the injury for next year?
He's bounced back from an injury before.
Not at this age. He's another year older, another year in father time.
No, this is you. I think you're so off base for this one. He's only had 73 plate appearances this year, so 60, including 63 at bats. Yes, he's only hit 190, a home run and 7 RBIs. But when you have that much time out of the game, you are going to suffer because of you. You can never get into any kind of rhythm to come back. This guy is going to work out over the winter and then try and come back. Admittedly, today, when I've heard some of the comments he's made, he sounds quite down, and rightfully so, as you would be. He kind of hints at, you guys want this to be the end for me, and almost like, he is feeling, down in the dumps and things like that. I mean, he's going to have he's already said he's going to have his normal off season to work out. Next season is a player option for $8 million. He's going to take up that player option, and he's going to want to go out the way he wants to go out. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say he's going to hit 300 again. I think that would be quite a stretch for him. But if he comes back and hits somewhere around about 270, 280, double figures in home runs, then I don't think that's a bad way for him to sign off. You can't sit here and say that because Derek Jeter's been injured this season that he's going to be he's going to not be able to put up any kind of numbers next season, because that's a hell of a reach.
And Matt, we've seen it all the time with people. Once father time comes, it can completely hit them. And I'm not suggesting that he should retire. Again, I think we will see him out there. I'm just saying for the Yankees, it would suit them. As much as Jeter is the fan icon and he is the captain, they're all about brass tacks at the end of the day. They want to get that payroll down. It's just a fact. They want to have that payroll down to what? I can't remember the exact figure, but they want to completely gut it by 2015 so they don't have to pay 50% luxury tax. It would suit them. I'm telling you now, it would suit them from a merchandise, not from a merchandise point of view, because Jeter sells the most jerseys.
Exactly.
But from a payroll point of view, it would help them. I mean, what happens if the guy comes back and he isn't 100% and we go through this all again next season? There's no evidence to prove that he can come back from this because he's at this age now.
The thing is, next season, if you've got Derek Jeter on board for next season, the amount of money he'll generate through ticket sales, merchandise, everything else, that's going to be worth it alone. That $8 million player option, and if you're sitting there worried about your 50% luxury tax, that makes it a $12 million contract. That's nothing for what this guy has given to that organisation. This guy will be out there next season and saying goodbye to baseball, and that's very rightly should be. I don't want people writing this guy off, and I think it would be extremely wrong to do so. This guy is an absolute class act, and he will go out on his own terms. He will not be going out this way. If he suffers more injuries over the off-season, he's trying to do his rehab, then he'll have to reevaluate exactly what he needs to do, and maybe that's when you're going to get the press conference that he's going to retire. But at the moment, he's not going to do it, and you can't compare him to certain other players because Derek Jeter's always been a special player. He'll be a first ballot Hall of Famer, and I don't believe that Father Time's caught up with him just yet. He's had an injury that he was not able to fully recover from and regain the strength in the rest of his left leg.
Look, I love Derek Jeter. I agree with you, a class act. He is everything that's perfect and wonderful about the game of baseball to me. Would you agree? He is just phenomenal. Just a wonderful man. The guy who comes up in the big moment, which is the greatest thing about him for me, regardless of how great he is off the field. The guy who was there in the biggest moment, leading those Yankees teams to World Series. And I agree, I think he'll be there, and I'll be happy for him to have his farewell tour like Mariano Rivera. Again, he'll probably play at a decent level. I just don't think he's going to be able to play at Jeter level. I really don't. I think that Father Time can catch up with you, and I think that when you have that sort of injury at his age, if it's already taken him a year to get over, and he's still not over it yet, then there's no evidence that by the start of next season, when he goes through spring ball and what have you, that the injury will be any better and that injuries won't reoccur because of the age.
That's what I'm saying. There's always that chance that that's going to happen. I mean, we can't say no, it's not going to happen. But at the end of it, what we're talking about here is Derek Jeter doing the very best that he can do to get back for the Yankees in 2014, and he would want to finish his career the right way. He's not going to go out on these terms if he can help it, because it's not the way that I'd want Derek Jeter's career to finish. So we're looking, as I say, we're looking at a first ballot Hall of Famer, and everyone in baseball is going to miss this guy when he goes.
Okay, then let's move on then. We're going to stay within New York because there's a huge game this Sunday afternoon, I believe. The Manning Bowl comes to town. Peyton Manning rides in on his high-flying Denver Broncos to face off against younger brother Eli, who suffered a difficult loss. I mean, it was almost tragic the way they played against the Cowboys earlier on in the week. They were not good at all. We've discussed that at nausea already earlier on in this week. Peyton comes in against his younger brother, Steven. How do we see this one going? Let's get into this thing. This is probably not the marquee match of the week. We'll get into the Seahawks, Seattle, probably tomorrow.
Yeah.
But this game, this is a big one, and Eli came out and said some interesting stuff today as well.
Yeah, I mean, Eli's been, come out and been very supportive of his brother, and as you would expect. I mean, he's come out and said that basically that once Peyton underwent that surgery, it was almost kind of far-fetched to think that that Peyton would be the same quarterback as he was before he had the surgery, and would he be able to perform at still an elite level, and Eli's come out and almost in shock that Peyton's been able to do it, and also looking up with certainly a certain amount of pride, you can imagine, as you do when you look up to your siblings and your peers and things like that. So this is going to be for me a very special game. It's part of the football calendar that throws up this game, and it's always one that when it does happen, it's something to look forward to. You've got Peyton's Broncos who tore apart the Ravens defense to open up the season, and then you've got you've got Eli Manning, who he's going to want to put up that victory on Sunday, even from just a Giants point of view. Then you add on to that the fact that it's brother against brother. There's so many things like that that just make it a very, very special game. My gut feeling, one, I don't think that the Broncos can put up those kind of numbers again on another day. It's one of those games that happens. They caught the Ravens off guard, and everything just went right for the Broncos. You've got Eli playing at home with his Giants team, and I can't see the Broncos going in there and beating the Giants on their own field, but I think it's going to be a shootout. It wouldn't surprise me if it was something like 35-31 to the Giants.
It's going to be an awesome game. It's that simple. This is going to be epic. This is going to be truly epic. Now, I was down on the Broncos coming into the year. I'm fully sold on them now. Peyton's healthy, and this notion that he's one shot away because of the neck injury. Every player in the National Football League is one shot away from having their career and season ended. The age for me doesn't matter because the velocity off the ball isn't there anymore. The velocity, it's a lie that they tried to form in the off-season that the velocity was back and he was Peyton Manning. But it doesn't matter because he carves you up with his brain. They use timing patterns. It's a 3-step, 5-step drop. Never takes a 7-step drop. He doesn't need to. It's just 3 or 5 or out the gun. And it's timing, and it's just precision. The ball is where it needs to be. And it's just perfect and poetry in motion to watch the way he carved up that Ravens defense for 7 TDs at his age. It was phenomenal. Just an abundance of weapons. Thomas, Decker, Julius Thomas is coming onto the scene, throwing Wes Welker into there as the slot guy. And he's never had an elite slot guy. He's never had a check down elite slot guy, and he's got a very, very good one now in Wes Welker, formerly the best at it in the game. So they're riding in there on the back of that performance. But I just said this on the UK End Zone football program. Go and dig that one up. That's going to be out probably just after this podcast. So after you listen to this one, listen to me gab some more about football over at the UK End Zone football program. Stephen will certainly be tuning in on his commute tomorrow.
Yes.
I have a gut feeling about the Giants in this game. I have absolutely no reason why. Tom Coughlin was so angry last week. You have to put all your faith in Tom Coughlin. There's a few coaches in this league who I put complete faith in. I sometimes don't even have to think about the roster. I did it this offseason with Mike Tomlin, and I did it with Mike Tomlin, and I do it with Tom Coughlin. The guy is just sensational. Super Bowl winner, just pure demander of his players. We'll sort out this David Wilson thing. I love this story that he's being forced everywhere with the football, all around the facility. Walking up and down the corridors from meetings, they've got like interns trying to punch the ball out as he walks down the corridor to force him to keep that ball high and tight across the chest. I love that. That is pure Tom Coughlin. They will sort that lad out. What they won't be able to sort out is the pass protection, which is purely embarrassing, Stephen. If you watched the other day when I think it was DeMarcus Ware came off the edge and his task was to chop block DeMarcus Ware, he completely whiffed going for DeMarcus Ware. It was embarrassing going to chop block him. I just have a gut feeling about the Giants, but again, the Broncos, who can they not outscore? They can outscore. They can score on every single possession in this league. It is scary. I'm with Chris Westling from NFL.com. He's saying this could be 07 Patriot standard, this offense. They could put up so many points. It's scary. There's just something about Eli at home with his older brother in town. I think he's going to take him down. I have no reason as to why, other than the fact I think he's going to hook up with Cruz and hook up with Nix, and they're going to make something happen. And for some reason, I just see Eli taking this one.
Yeah, I think Eli's going to take it. I mean, what did the Giants have? 3 guys with over 100 yards receiving the other night. They had their problems on the ground. You can't think it will get any worse for the Giants on the ground in this game than it did last week. We don't know who's going to be the starting running back. I mean, that they've been kept things kind of quiet in New York about whether it is going to be David Wilson or whether they're going to go with somebody else. For me, I don't think it really matters who's going to start. It's going to be a running back by committee. Whoever gets seems as though they've got the ability on the day to be able to get those necessary yardage when they need to. But Eli's going to rely, I think, a hell of a lot up in the air, like he did eventually to try and on week 1, and then we obviously know what Peyton does when he puts the ball around in the air as well. So, I've already said it's going to be a shootout. Both these teams, I think, can score when they want to, and maybe even 35-31 might even be a bit of a conservative estimate. If you've got a football game to watch over the weekend, and I know we've got another game that we'll talk about as part of our NFL preview when we touch on that tomorrow night, which will be our last show before the weekend. The Seattle against San Francisco, but you've got to watch the Manning Bowl as well.
I mean, man, if you got to watch one football game this season, I'm watching Alabama roll into College Station and Johnny Manziel shoot them guys down. We'll talk about that tomorrow. We have to talk about that. This running back by committee thing, it's a good point, and we'll sign off this part of the show with this Manning Bowl section with this. The running back by committee only works if the guys can pass protect. If you look at this Giants offense, this is a vertical offense simply because that's the weapons they have. They don't have a tight end. Manning doesn't have a check down target. David Wilson is not great out the backfield. He showed that in the first game. He's not phenomenal out the backfield. So you need guys who can pass protect in there for Eli so that he can look down the field to Nix, Randall, Cruz. They didn't have that tight end anymore. Even Martellus Bennett would have been a nice check down target for him this year. That guy isn't there. So there's no use in having the running back by committee if they can't pass protect. I would have David Wilson well out there just for now until he learns how to block and until he picks up the protection schemes. And I'd even consider going with Brandon Jacobs for a massive part of it because he must know how Eli works. He was there for a while. He must know the audibles and the calls that Eli gives in his tempo. I'd probably go down that route.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's definitely going to see some action on Sunday. It's going to be really interesting. Some of the things that's going to happen in that game, some of the matchups, and I can't wait. I think it's going to be a great game. Yeah, I didn't touch on the college game on Saturday because we will touch on that on tomorrow night's show. That's regarded as one of the biggest college regular season games of all time in some respects. Of the amount of publicity going into this game, and we can all thank Johnny Football for putting that into the limelight.
Yeah, I thought you didn't mention it because I might have had a heart attack on this end, because the people who listened to our college preview show, and I couldn't get the words out of my mouth because I was speaking so fast, and I had to almost slow down the audio because I was so excited. I'm so excited for this game. This is my second favourite game of the year, alongside the AFC Championship game, because I love the Championship game Sunday, and I know my Patriots are going to be there. And even if they're not, Stephen Edwards, we're dining together that night, don't forget. So that's going to be a glorious occasion when Conley rolls into town, or if Edwards rolls up here, and we dine in my Patriots jersey. I don't care how classy the restaurant is. In my Patriots jersey, watching said Patriots destroy, whether it's Peyton or those Texans or whoever else they chuck in front of us.
This is it. We did talk about it last night because we'll be doing some sort of food reviews as well on the show as part of our light-hearted take onto things. But no, we've got wherever that event will take place, we'll sort that out nearer the time, because it's one of the big games of the year before we lead into the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, I think whatever happens in the AFC Championship game this year is going to be completely upstaged with what's going to happen in the NFC Championship. Okay,
to the association we go, Stephen Edwards. 2 topics to hit in the association today. Basketball season's getting back on the map a bit. I like it a lot. I've started to see a couple of things sputter out of the NBA world after a dry spell of almost a month with the lead up to the football season. Let's kick off with the Black Mamba. Let's kick off with Kobe Bryant. He isn't sure himself now, Stephen Edwards, if he's going to be ready for opening day. I mean, we spoke about this before. Let's update ourselves now on our opinions. Do we think he's going to be back on opening day?
I think the feeling is for me that no, he's not going to be back on opening day. And I never thought he was going to be. I always said we were looking at December. I think that was for me what we were looking at. And then there was all this talk coming back. No, Kobe will be back for opening day, and it's his team, and he'll lead it, and everything else that goes along with that. And I was never sure that was ever going to be the case. And if you've now got Kobe coming out and saying, well, where are we now? We're a little 7 weeks away from when the NBA season starts, so. And he's already coming out and saying, well, maybe I won't be ready for opening day. And I think, so there's some doubts definitely in his mind. And I think he needs to take the cautious approach. If we're talking about a player that's getting up there in years, if you've just thrown that at Jeter, then you've got Kobe as well, who is getting up there in years, and he does need to take this easy, because the Lakers are going to have a horrific season anyway. There is no reason for Kobe to rush himself back and hog the ball like he does, and just try and take over games when he's not physically able to do so. So let him come back when he's good and ready, get himself back in basketball shape. He may then be able to help the Lakers win some games they may not be able to win, because every time you got Kobe on the floor, you've always got that chance. I mean, the guy takes ridiculously difficult shots, but at the same time, he can make those ridiculously difficult shots at times. So you always, you've always got to consider when you play the Lakers, that's what you're going to be faced against. But if he's not physically able to play, and he hasn't got the 100% movement and things like that, then my fear for him is he's going to do things that he can't do, and he's going to then injure himself. So I think for the Kobe's benefit, for the Lakers' benefit, come back when you're good and ready, and that for me is not opening day.
Yeah, I think there's 3 ways to look at this thing now. One, Kobe has said this, so it's like some shock when he does come out on opening day. It's almost like a D-Rose RG3 The Return sort of advert campaign for Nike. That like, will he, won't he? And then he does reappear. I still veer down the side of come back on Christmas Day. Let's have a true spectacle of Kobe Bryant. Hold out till December, like you said, at the back end of December, Christmas Day fixtures, Kobe Bryant rolls out, brings the house down in Staples Center, and I still want to go down the route of just give Kobe the ball this year as the Lakers and let him just shoot every single time. Don't let the offense run through anyone else. Let him go for the scoring title. Let him go for the all-time scoring record in the season. Let him go for those sort of numbers. Just let him shoot the ball every time. Like you said, though, he has to come back when he's good and ready. And no one will know better than Kobe Bryant because he plays through so many injuries. There can't be many people with a better grasp on their body as an athlete at the moment in this day and age than Kobe Bean Bryant. But he does have to be fit and ready, Stephen. That's the key thing. What's the point? There is no point. They're not going to have a season anyway. There's no issue. I actually think this is almost a similar sort of point as the Yankees. And I've said before that the Lakers probably would like to amnesty Kobe, and obviously they can't. It's blasphemy. They would probably like him to maybe miss a couple of months at the start of the season so they can get in a hole so that there's no chance of him resurrecting the season.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's it. I mean, we're back onto almost a tanking subject again. And the thing is, that for me, even with everything that's going on with the Lakers, I'm not going to talk about tanking. I've talked about it a couple of times on previous shows, but the Lakers aren't going anywhere this year. That Western Conference is so deep. I mean, I already brought it up with Chuck about the feeling that the Mavericks weren't going to be a playoff team. He felt they were going to be. I disagree. And if I sit there and tell you that the Mavericks aren't going to be a playoff team, the Mavericks are a better team than the Lakers are, so there's no way the Lakers are a playoff team. So then you've then got a situation where they're going to be in the lottery. Now, do you jeopardise a higher draft pick by winning games that maybe you don't necessarily want to win? And I know we're sitting here talking about the deepest NBA draft. Yourself has talked about that. Chuck talked about that. So there are going to be some real gems coming out of that draft. And I just think that for the risk factor of putting Kobe Bryant back out on that floor with a potential to get a serious injury because he comes back too fast, and then you might even look at the fact that if he does come back, he then could get injured leading into the following season. For me, it's just not worth it. Just get him back in there. Just hope as best you can from a Lakers point of view. You've still got Pau Gasol. You've still got Steve Nash. So they're not going to be completely out of games. They're going to beat some of the worst teams in the league. But even with Kobe back, they're going to struggle to compete against some of the better teams in the Western Conference. I think the only thing that might be quite interesting would be if they become like an 8th seed. And they're the sort of team you wouldn't want to face as an 8th seed because you've always got Kobe on the other side of the court, and then he just elevates his game when the playoffs come around. But I don't necessarily think being the 8th seed is such a great idea for the Lakers.
Yeah, long term that would be devastating. I mean, it really would. I mean, it would serve no purpose. The Chuck that Steven's referring to there is Chuck Cooperstein from ESPN Dallas, who we had on the show a couple of weeks back. Go and dig that show up because Steven had a one-on-one with Chuck, and it was wonderful to listen to, Steven. I enjoyed it myself. Obviously, I had an exclusive first listen. It's out there for all the listeners now. Some may have listened to it before. For new listeners, go and dig that one up. That was a great interview. There just is no benefit to him coming back anytime soon. There really isn't, other than for Kobe and his image and the Black Mamba and him wanting to. He still believes he can win a championship with this team, and I would never be the guy to tell him he couldn't, because I wouldn't want to see those eyes look at me when I said that to him. This tanking issue, I'm fed up with talking about the tanking issue. My favourite thing with regards to tanking issues in sport at the moment, Stephen Edwards, is Jadeveon Clowney purposely tanking to get away from the Oakland Raiders. I'm not sure if you've seen the way he's played recently. That kid is purposely not balling so that he doesn't have to go anywhere near the Raiders. He wants to slide down to like the Steelers, someone like that, in around the 6th, 7th spot. I see what that kid's doing. I got your number, Jadeveon.
Can we do this? Now you've mentioned this, I just want to do this. I would love one of our sponsors, when they come on board, to stump up some money so that myself and Ollie can go out to a South Carolina game, go out and have the opportunity to do a pre-game interview
with Jadeveon.
I will hold the camera whilst you hold the microphone, and I'd like you to stand there,
say it to his face.
Say to his face, Mr. Clowney, I believe, sir, that you are tanking so you don't want to face the Oakland Raiders. I want to see just how fast Ollie Connolly can run.
Hey, tell you what, he runs like a 4.8. I think if I had decent enough preparation time, if I was told about this 4 months in advance, I could potentially get to a 4.8, because let's not forget, I have the momentum of I know it's coming, and he doesn't know. So he has to process it, let the anger flow, decide whether it's worthwhile him doing this for his draft stock before he then takes off. Well, by the time he's done that, I'm gone. I'm running a 4-2 flat when I've got Clowney behind me, and I am out of that stadium. I'm like CJ2K at the combine. I am just out of there. I'm in North Carolina by the time that Jadeveon has figured out that he wants to, thump me, as they say.
Do you know what you just made him sound like? You just said to him like he has to process it, he has to get angry about it. You haven't made him sound that great. You pretty much made him sound like Mongo from Blazing Saddles, if you ever seen that.
I thought he sounded like Arnold Schwarzenegger, but then of course he was once a governor of a state of the great sports that we love. Let's all process that for a minute. That might take some Mongo time to figure that out. Alright, let's stay within the association. My apologies to you, Jadeveon. I'm not saying it's a negative. If I'm an elite draft prospect, I'd do that sort of thing. I never understand when they want to go number 1 overall. Why would you want to go to a bum team? I'd want to go in the middle order, where it's an alright team where I could make a difference, and then I still get the praise of making the difference, but it's already an average team as well.
It's the number 1 pick, isn't it? And that's what...
Yeah, but outside that then, okay, why would you want to go number 3? It makes no sense. It's a bum team. You want to slide down to 32 and win the Super Bowl. Anyway, Michael Beasley, Stephen Edwards, this is our final topic this evening. Michael Beasley re-signed with the Miami Heat on... It's not guaranteed, the contract, I believe.
No.
If he makes the roster, he makes X amount. How much is it? $1 million, I believe, if he makes the roster.
Yeah, if he makes the roster, it is $1 million. It's so basically, yeah, non-guaranteed deal, $1 million. If he makes the team, that's what he's going to be paid. But if he doesn't, then there's no loss to it. I mean, it's another one of these guys that, alongside the Greg Oden deal, that it's a low risk, high reward. If they get anything out of Michael Beasley at all, it's an added bonus. And we talked about in the pre-show, as we get into thinking about sports already, in the pre-show about his personal problems and how being back in how being in on an NBA team will help overcome potentially some of the recreational issues he's got going on. But for me, what I've labelled him as, and I'll label exactly the same thing towards Greg Oden, is the fact they're ring chasers. That's all they are. They're people that are just going to ride on LeBron's coattails. They can get that ring. I mean, Michael Beasley, for anyone who doesn't remember what happened, I mean, Michael Beasley was a standout player before he came to the NBA. Everyone knew about Michael Beasley. And when they had the 2008 draft, Chicago lucked out and got the number 1 pick. And I think they had something like a 0.7 chance, I think, of getting a number 1 pick through the lottery system. So everyone was talking about at the time. I mean, Chicago took Derrick Rose, but there were certain people that were critical of Chicago taking Derrick Rose over Michael Beasley. So that's how, in high regard, Michael Beasley was at that time. And Michael Beasley went to the Miami Heat and put up 3 reasonable years with the Heat. I mean, he averaged over 14 points a game with them, and a fairly decent player, but still some people regard him as being a bit of a disappointment as the number 2 overall pick in that draft. And then once Miami put into place their plan to bring in LeBron James and Chris Bosh, then Michael Beasley was given away to the Minnesota Timberwolves. So, yeah, I mean, after you went to Timberwolves under those years, he then went from a star to just being a backup before landing in Phoenix last season. So, if he can give the Miami Heat anything, then I think it's got to be viewed as a bonus. But I'm not convinced yet that he will still make their team.
This is one of the worst player personnel decisions I've seen in a long time in the NBA. I mean, just think about this. This kid is a drug user, okay? Smokes weed, does all kinds of stuff. You know the one place you don't want to sign a person to if they do drugs and they're in that scene? It's South Beach. Why would you bring a known drug user who's failed a marijuana test this off-season, has failed multiple ones before, and you know, Stephen, my most hated thing in professional sports is the guys who fail the weed test. It makes no sense. Sit back, earn your money, particularly in the NFL, if you have like a 4-year career span. Earn as much cash as you can till you're like, early 30s is probably the average age of retiring in the NBA. Then go and smoke as much weed as you want with all your money. Whilst you're in the league, stay clean, earn your money, give back to the sport that you've got the talent to do. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So you bring this kid in with this known bass who's just a few weeks ago failed a drugs test with the police and was caught up for possession of marijuana and other recreational drugs. You bring him to Miami, to South Beach, and you're going to trust him, taking him on road games and stuff? I cannot see that one bit. And I don't understand Pat Riley doing this as well. The guy's so intelligent, and he probably sees the chance of stealing a player who could be a really good role player for them if he gets his act together for pittance of $1 million on a 1-year deal. That is pittance. That would be an absolute bargain. But it just doesn't seem worthwhile when you already have LeBron and stuff. It's not like this kid can be that much of a difference maker for the trouble and the headache that could come with it. It just doesn't make much sense to me. And like I said to you, I'm just waiting for them to sign Lamar Odom next, because they brought this kid in, they brought in Greg Oden, and Lamar must be soon to follow, because they're making some weird player personnel decisions for me.
Yeah, I mean, even from a Bulls point of view, I mean, there was some words on Twitter. Oh, could the Bulls go and get Michael Beasley? And we could do with that an extra body on that in that front court to back up players like the Wild Deng and that. But I wanted the Bulls to stay well clear. I didn't want any part of Michael Beasley, and I certainly don't want any part of Lamar Odom. And bearing in mind that we could use that next big man. No, these guys, you've got to sit down and think that they've got to get themselves sorted out before you even think about trying to get them back into a regular NBA rotation and see what they can actually contribute to your team. And I just don't see where Michael Beasley's going to fit in here. I mean, the Heat are going to go with LeBron James, going to go with Dwayne Wade, are going to go with Chris Bosh, Ray Allen, all the same people as they went with last season. They've made a couple of minor changes, but that's about it. I mean, I can't even see what Greg Oden brings to the table for them. If they get anything out of Greg Oden and they can keep him healthy for even half the season, they've done an extremely good job, because he will give them one thing that they're sorely missing, which is a rim protector and a guy that can rebound, and allow Chris Bosh to go down to his natural position at the 4 rather than playing the 5, so that LeBron can then play the 4, which doesn't always work for them. Beasley, if he is taken on for the opening night and going forward, then I think Miami have opened themselves up to all kinds of problems. How's he going to feel coming back to Miami, bearing in mind he was cast away so they could bring in LeBron and Chris Bosh?
You know what, Steven? You know what? He isn't going to care. He's going to smoke his troubles away. I'm telling you now. This kid failed a drug test a few weeks ago. So the incentive for this kid to stay off drugs is essentially, don't fail a drug, don't smoke during training camp, and we give you $1 million. And then that's a guaranteed $1 million. You're living in Miami, and you have the rest of the year to buy as much drugs as you want and do whatever you want in Miami. So how on earth is this going to help the Heat? It doesn't make any sense. This kid's only incentive to stay off drugs. Bearing in mind he failed a drug test a few weeks ago, is just to spend however long training camp is. Don't fail a drugs test, don't smoke weed, and we're going to give you $1 million, and then smoke all the pot you want. It's a baffling decision from someone so as intelligent as Pat Riley. And again, I understand why he's trying to do it. It could be considered a bargain if this kid is on the straight and narrow and he can give you a decent, help off the bench just whilst you're resting LeBron or what have you. The risk isn't, the award isn't good enough for the risk. It's that simple.
No, I mean, it's definitely a strange one. It's not one I saw coming, but I mean, for me, as I say, I was glad the ball stayed well clear of Michael Beasley, and don't get me wrong, I wish him well, but this is an incredibly strange move, and maybe Pat Riley's lost the ability to make a decent player evaluation.
Stephen Edwards, come on now.
What?
A couple of poor moves maybe, but we can't be going down the route of saying Pat Riley's lost it.
I can say Pat Riley's lost it. I can even repeat it for you if you want me to.
You repeat that for me, sir.
Pat Riley has lost it.
3-peat. We'll see you at the 3-peat.
Are you going to cut that and put it in the intro?
I'm going to cut that and put that in the intro. And then I'll put in "We see you at the 3-beat" because that's where we're headed for, Stephen. That's where we're headed for. That's us done.
Where we are headed for? When are you become a Miami Heat?
No, I meant we as a society is that we're headed for a Miami Heat 3-beat. And LeBron James is going to become bigger than the world if they get a 3-beat. It's going to be Jordan-esque all over again in an age of social media. Can you imagine that? It's going to be just in your face, night in, night out, LeBron James. It's going to be almost frustrating, to be honest.
Frustration isn't a word. Dull, boring. They're words.
I'm never dull watching LeBron, though. I'm never dull.
No, in all fairness, I'm never dull watching LeBron. You know, I've had the fortune to see him live, and it's a joy to behold. But it just made me wonder when he come out and said "we" all of a sudden. I thought, you've lost Doc Rivers, you've lost Kevin Garnett, and you've lost
Ollie Connolly.
And all of a sudden,
that's the message to the Celtics franchise.
Yeah, they've lost Ollie Connolly as well. Ollie Connolly's taken his bag and moved to South Beach.
Taking my talents to South Beach. That's not true. That's not true. I'll cut that one for the intro as well. But Celtics fans, don't worry. I stay strong. I trust in Danny Ainge, who appeared on the BS report this week. I was very encouraged of what I heard from Mr. Ainge. You know what? I've got this weird feeling that we're better than we should be. I was looking at the front five the other day. It's better than I wanted it to be, Stephen. I wanted it to be worse. I don't like it.
And the thing is, Danny Ainge is an incredibly intelligent man.
He knows what he's doing.
Oh, without doubt.
I'm telling you,
he was a nasty, niggly little player. But the thing is, what they came with was a guy who's passionate. The guy is passionate about the game of basketball, and that's what you want in an organisation such as the Celtics. He's Celtics through and through. I know he went on and played for other teams after he left the Boston Celtics, but for me, I'll always think of him as a Celtics player. So, I mean, he was the one who had the vision to put together the team that won that title a few years ago. And, you know, he's going to rebuild that franchise. The Boston Celtics won't be down for long.
Oh, I know that. And I have every faith in Danny. And again, I repeat it for people who weren't listening to the show. I don't think I was doing the show when I tweeted this out because I have a contact, Stephen. My only contact on the planet is within the Boston Globe. And I do email him backwards and forwards. He sends me some nice little nuggets. And when Gerald Wallace went to the front office to sign the deal and what have you after the trade went down and go through all the shenanigans, the press stuff, he asked them what his number would be for the coming season. He wanted to know what number he was going to get and what numbers were available, and they told him, and this is a direct quote from the Celtics PR department, it doesn't matter. You know what that means? That means they're trying to trade that fella before he even gets his jersey. So they're making the moves. They're going to make that team as bad as possible before the trade deadline, sorry.
Well, the best thing that you could do from a Celtics point of view, not to sidetrack a bit into the Celtics, is get rid of the most overrated point guard in the league in Rajon Rondo.
And man, the guy was almost the MVP of a 7-game series with the Heat. The guys,
but he can't hit a jump shot.
Okay, Stephen Edwards, it's time to basically wrap this show up. Any housekeeping to do? Anything to do? Anything to plug?
Well, the big plug is obviously myself and Ollie Connolly are at Hoops Aid on Sunday at the Copper Box. There are still some tickets available. If you need any
discounted tickets, we can get you some discounted tickets.
Discounted tickets. So
even more expensive.
If you haven't got anything else to do on Sunday, then go along and support what is an amazing cause in Hoops Aid at the Copper Box in the Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park.
Awesome stuff. Any more stuff to plug? I mean, on my end, it's basically this show.
Yeah, it is.
Like us on Facebook, search us on Facebook at First Take UK. Exclusive video content coming to the Facebook page. Exclusive video comment that's even more exclusive than the Facebook page coming to the YouTube page. So if you follow all of them, you get all the content. I mean, it's not much fairer than that, Stephen Edwards. Follow us on Twitter at UK First Take. Rate us on iTunes and you'll get a nice little shout out. Doesn't even have to be 5-star. We shouted out a 4-star guy. We actually changed the show format ever so slightly for the guy who gave us 4 stars. So, we listen to this stuff. We'll respond to every single tweet we get, every single Facebook message we get, any YouTube response we get, any iTunes response we get. We will respond to you all. Give us your thoughts. This is a debate show. We want to hear your thoughts and opinions. We're going to have 3 polls up on the site today, Steve and I have just decided. We'll put the Jeter one up, we'll put the Manning one up, and we'll put up the Kobe one. And we'll leave that open to you guys, and until tomorrow, I guess, Stephen Edwards, we won't know the results till tomorrow.
No, the results coming tomorrow. I mean, this show has come in at just under an hour and a half. Tomorrow, probably there'll be a warning to say that tomorrow's show may run a little bit long because we've got a lot to cover tomorrow night. It's the last show of the week for us, our Thursday night show, so we'll be covering the NFL weekend. We'll be covering the Alabama against Texas A&M game. We need to get into Robinson Cano as well. We've got some more baseball as well on top of that to be able to talk about, and that's without anything that comes our way in
yeah, man, Oklahoma State's going to go down again tomorrow. Let's not forget that Oklahoma State Part 3 of that saga will land with us tomorrow morning sometime, and I'll be picking my jaw up off the floor again, I'm sure, because I've just been gobsmacked by that once again. An escort service for recruits. You'd just take a visit anyway, even if you had no interest. Once you found that out, I'm taking a visit to campus.
Do you want to run that past Molly first?
No. She's away at the moment. All is good in the Conley household.
So yes, it is our last show of the week tomorrow, and then we'll be back with you for a late Sunday show. I believe so. I'm excited. Yes, we will be a late Sunday show after myself has got back from Hoops Aid. I don't know, where are you going to be back? When are you going to be back from Hoops Aid, Mr. Connolly?
I don't know. I believe I'm staying in London. I don't know how many nights I'm staying for. I leave all that stuff up to Molly. I'm not involved in any of those. I'm not involved in those discussions. I'll find out on probably tomorrow evening what's going on Saturday and Sunday. I got no idea. I let her do all that sort of stuff.
So yeah, Dave, me and Mr. Connolly will be sharing a beer at the game on Sunday.
More than one for myself.
Yes.
You're doing some work for other such outlets. I will be just enjoying the wonders of Hoops Aid. Again, check out Hoops Aid. Just Google Hoops Aid. It'll be up there. We'll tweet out links for discounted tickets if you can't afford the already reasonably priced tickets and you want a bit of a discount. Fire a tweet our way and we'll let you know all about that. That's us done, Stephen Edwards. Great show.
It is another great show from us all. So it's good night from me at DRose UK 36.
And I've been at Ollie UK EZ, but at First Take UK. At UK First Take is the Twitter handle. That's where we've been from. For ukfirsttake.wordpress.com. And again from at DRose UK 36. Auf Wiedersehen.
It's good night from me.